Welcome to the Pursuit of Learning podcast. I'm your host, Clint Murphy. My goal is for each of us to grow personally, professionally, and financially, one conversation at a time. To do that, we will have conversations with subject matter experts across a variety of modalities. My job as your host will be to dig out those golden nuggets of wisdom that will facilitate our growth. Join me on this pursuit. Today, I talk with Rich Huisman, a business consultant dedicated to helping businesses transform by developing great leaders. We work our way through Rich's book, The Leader's List, the 10 traits every great leader must have. If you're a leader or want to be, have a listen. Rich, welcome to the Pursuit of Learning. Before we dive into your career and into your book, The Leader's List, I'd like to ask you two quick questions. The first is, what is motivating you in life today? And what are 2 to 3 things you want to make sure that we get across to the listeners today on the podcast?
Wow. What's motivating me today? I think similar to you, Clint, I have got a thirst for learning new stuff and knowledge. And, currently I have a consulting business, and I think what I enjoy most is learning about how to pivot and how to learn new things, especially in this COVID world. I've had to adjust. When COVID first hit, nobody wanted to see a consultant. That's the last person they wanted to see. So I learned how to adapt and took a course during that time, and just the pursuit of learning new things. I think it's been what continues to motivate me and will continue to motivate me in the future. 2 or 3 things that I want the listeners to take away is maybe just an observance that, people can change radically. I think my life has changed a lot in terms of pursuing career, and I hope they take away that, there's more to life than pursuing a career or job or money or possessions, that there's way more to life than that kind of stuff. So I hope they take that away, and just my passion for people and probably the passion for learning new things. And so I think those are the 3 things that I'd love people to take away.
It's a great list. Thank you. That will give us a lot to work on as we work through the various topics and have some digressions and come back to things. So on that line, when you and I knew each other, for those that are listening, Rich and I knew each other in our past lives and in different entities. You were an executive with Metri at the time, molding and millwork, otherwise known by a lot of people as solder. Can you take us through your career with them and then ultimately your decision to jump from solder into another company as an executive?
Yeah, so it was an awesome company, family owned, and what drew me to them, lots of opportunity. So if you wanted to grow, if you wanted to climb the corporate ladder, there was lots of opportunity. So I started in sales with them. I was working in another industry, but related. Started in sales. Then a promotion came up to be a sales manager in Halifax. So I took that, moved my entire my family. I've got 4 kids, and 3 at the time. We moved out to Halifax, and my daughter was born out there. Lived in Halifax, which is an amazing experience. And then 8 months later, they came to me, and the branch manager had moved on to another role in the company. And I think, if I'm going to be honest, Clint, I don't think anyone applied for the branch manager job in Halifax. They said, Rich, you're already here. I know you're young, but you have a pulse. So why don't you move into this role? So I had the privilege and opportunity to take over the branch in Halifax. So I did that for 5 years, which is amazing. I learned tons. And then through that experience, the company came along and said, and I think you were working in manufacturing at the time, right? Well, they said, we were learning this thing called lean in manufacturing. We want to know if there's application on the distribution side of our business. Would you be interested in going on these training courses? So it was a 2-year journey. Training was in Vancouver. And then it's got like a white, yellow, green, black belt program, and became a black belt. And actually our graduation ceremony was in Japan, which was really cool at Toyota. I got lots of stories about Japan and Toyota. It changed my life. And then I took those practices and brought them back into the business and applied them. And it changed everything. It changed the way I viewed people. It changed the way I ran a business. And so then from there, the results were so good and I had an awesome team there. And I got promoted to Toronto, and my wife was super happy because that's where we're from. And so we moved back to Toronto, did that for 5 years, one of the largest divisions, and kind of applied the lean tools that I learned and getting the right people on the right seats kind of. And did that, and then was promoted to a senior leadership, executive level Canadian leadership team, and got a new job looking after all of our national accounts. So we would call on accounts like Home Depot and Lowe's and Home Hardware and Timber Marts. So I kind of did that before leaving. And the company went through lots of changes, and just felt in my life I was ready for another challenge, and left that company and went to one of our largest customers was Timber Mart Group. They're at 700 lumber yards across Canada. Was there for a short period of time, then went to another company called Roma Molding, and was the chief operating officer and ran divisions for them in LA, New Jersey, Toronto, and Atlanta. And then from there, finally, left that, and I'll get into this if you want me to continue, Clint. So I left corporate world and because of something my son said, that we had friends over, and we got on the topic of parenting, and he said to them, I was basically raised by my mom because my dad was always on an airplane. And that kind of, at that moment when I heard that, it wrecked me, and I said, that's it, I'm quitting corporate. I'm quitting being on a plane Monday to Friday, quitting all this travel. I'm quitting pursuing the corporate ladder, and I'm going to spend time, whatever I've left when my kids are still at home, focusing on my family. And so I said, okay, what am I going to do? And then started a consulting business. So, and haven't looked back, and that was 5 years ago.
How old was he when he said that, Rich?
18, going on 19.
And he was your oldest?
He was my oldest, yeah.
And so at that time, how old were your other three children?
Yeah, so I have, so at the time, he was 18, 19. I have an 18-year-old boy, 17-year-old boy. So we had like bang, 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 3 kids in a row. And then I have a daughter who's 16 now. So that she would have been 11.
Okay, so she was 11.
Yeah. So she was born in Halifax. And then, and now we have an amazing relationship. Now, my relationship with all my kids has just been amazing. And now I think they wish Dad would travel more or at all, because now I'm home every night, right? So, but it's amazing.
So that was the light bulb.
That was the light bulb.
That was the light bulb that brought you home. Okay. And so then you say, I'm not doing any of that. I'm done. I'm not LA, New Jersey, Atlanta. You're flying all over the country, in the country at the time that you didn't live in, which makes it even more challenging. And so you say, I'm done with that. I'm going to start something myself. How do you land on JENT Consulting? And where does the name come from?
Yeah. So I was actually, even contemplating getting into millwork, distribution, and that's a whole nother story. And then, decided I have too many friends in that industry. Clint and I have worked together. We've got piles of friends still that work there, and said, I don't want to compete with them. So molding, and that's basically all I've known. And then I thought, we learned a lot. I learned a ton from the Sauter family and how to run a business, and the learning, I just thought every business runs like this. Every business sets goals for their financials. Every business implements lean through their organization, and thought, wow, maybe, maybe I can teach this to a business. And I had a buddy who had a manufacturing business, and he said, oh, maybe I'll hire you 3 days a week, and you can, come and consult us and vision and where we should go and strategy mapping. So I said, okay, there's the start of a consulting business. I called it JENT, named after my 4 kids. So Josh is my oldest. Emma is my youngest. Noah is, my second guy. And Isaiah, which his middle name is Thomas. Isaiah. Jenny didn't really sound as nice as Gent, so we use his middle name. But yeah, so it's that's where I got Gent from.
And so that was the start to the consulting business, and you added lean in there. So what we'll do now is if it works for you, I want to take people through the Leaders List book that you've written, because it outlines a lot of what you do, and I found it very powerful. Before we get there, we'll go through two more questions. The first one is, can you take the listeners through the difference between being a manager and a leader, which is what you try to coach and consult people to become?
Yeah, I would say, I hate even using the word manager, right? Because I think it's an old school term that just indicated that you were in a position, right? So you are you're managing something, and it's usually people, or, so you're put in above this, even if you deserve it or not. Like I said in my, the opening line of my book is, it should be illegal for some people to be in leadership. And I've worked with a lot of people that it should be illegal, and they were managers. They were not leaders. Leaders to me are people that, if you go through the leaders list, that inspire followership, that you trust wholeheartedly, that show love and empathy, like they have all of that stuff. So it doesn't even matter that they're in a position of authority, which in our terms we would call manager. These people just naturally lead whatever position they are in the organization. So I think that's the difference. Is, to me, manager is a position on an org chart, where a leader is someone that inspires followership.
Great answer. Before we take people through the book, can you take them through how the process works in what the survey,
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I'll kind of give you some context into how the leaders list evolved. And, so there's 4 P's to, and this is the beauty of the consulting business, is I just made it up. I was like, what are the things that I see that small business, and I seem to attract, business, smaller type business under 50 million in revenue. What do they need? Or what is the gaps? And I noticed the first P is people. Avid reader like you, Clint, one of the books that's impacted me the most is Good to Great. And, that chapter on people, and where they talk about, when in doubt, don't hire, get the right people on the right seats on the bus, and I lived it. I had the wrong people on the wrong seats on the bus and had to do some moving. And sometimes I just found them a different seat, and sometimes I had to get them off the bus. But the first thing was people. So when I started my consulting business, the first phone call I made, and we use this tool, and there's lots of these tools around, but the tool that we were most comfortable with at Sauder was a tool called the Predictive Index. So I phoned the owner, said, hey, I'm starting my consulting business. And he's like, hey, why don't you join us? Like, I was like, well, can I just sign up for a subscription and use this with my clients? He's like, why don't you join us? And so I did. And that was kind of one of the first connections. And that really helps me when I go into organizations and say, okay, who's on the team? Do we have them in the right seats on the bus? That's the first P, right? Do we have the right people? Well, then I was like, you know what? I've got a gap in that, is before people, and Good to Great touched on this, was level 5 leadership, is, do we have the right leaders in place? And, and then how do we assess whether they're leading well or not? So I really thought about it. And I'd been through the corporate ringer with leadership 360s and these long assessments that take forever. And people hate filling them out because they take so long, and they think that their answers are going to be shared with the leader. So there's a little hesitancy on being honest. So it made me think, is there a way that I could put something together that would give leaders a quick assessment into, one, can they assess themselves correctly? Like, is there any blind spots for them? So I want to know, how do you think you're leading? And then let's send it out to your staff automatically to see how they think you're leading. And so I first started with, very rudimentary Google Forms and created this, but it was a lot of work. So I developed an app, or I had a guy develop an app for me. So it's very simple. You go to leaderslist.com or jentconsulting.com. As a leader, you rank yourselves on these 10 traits, and they're out of 10. So it's very simple. So 10, you get 10 grades for each. Gives you a percentage out of 100, which we can all understand. I definitely understood what 65% or 70 in high school was like. And So you rank yourself, and then anonymously, well, you send it to your staff or people that you influence, and they rank you, and it's all anonymous. You can't see what they. You can see generally what they say. You can't see who said what. So it gives you a great assessment. And the big aha for me out of doing this was leaders would think, "Oh man, yeah, I love and I show empathy and I show people I care at work. I'm like an 8 or 9." And then when they get the results back, they're like, "Wow, I got people on the team that think I'm a 3." And that's like, I've had some leaders that just crushed by, "Wow, I thought I was doing this and I'm showing up like this." And so it's rocked them. And then, so I decided every chapter of the book was specific, practical. I'm a very practical guy. I wanted practical little nuggets for people that if you do this, you will see your scores improve on each trait. So I did, and shared a lot of stories, of how to improve in each trait. So that's how the kind of leaders list came about. So that was the first P is are you a good leader? Are you leading well? What do your people say? And then I use the predictive index to ensure that leader has the right people in the right seats. And so that's probably the most critical of the 4 Ps that I offer. That's probably the most critical. If you can get leadership and people right, you can do a lot. If you don't, good luck. The 3 other Ps, they don't really matter much.
And Rich, the people that are rocked by the information, that's a challenge in and of itself, given the leaders list, because they're lacking one of the fundamental things they need as a leader, which is the self-awareness, right? Sure. When I did it, there may have been a couple where I scored less than I would like to, and I'm working on it. And those were the ones I expected to score less on because I knew they weren't my strengths. So for someone to get, I've always said, for someone to get rocked by a 360 and to hear, "Oh, well, I never thought that," it seems that you're lacking a fundamental self-awareness of your own behaviors. And how does someone improve that?
Yeah, that is tough and takes a lot of coaching. And I think I know fairly quickly when I work with an individual or a corporation, especially when I'm doing the leadership team, of who's going to improve and who not by how seriously they take the assessment and say, "Well, you know what? I'm going to specifically show, this is a big blind spot for me. I didn't know this is how the staff feels, but I'm going to make a difference." So it takes a lot more coaching, but yeah, it happens. The greatest thing I see, and then it just reeks of great leadership, is when the leader assesses them way lower than what his people or her people assess them, right? When they think they're a 7 on love and empathy and their people are like 8s and 9s. It's beautiful to see when a leader is that, humble and willing to admit that they don't have all the answers and they want to continually improve, right? That's been the most gratifying part of it, and seeing leaders actually do something about it and set goals. And
so something that jumps out at me there, and when you're talking to those leaders and you're assessing whether you think they are going to move forward with it or they're not, is there a level of growth mindset versus fixed mindset that comes in? And an example of a fixed mindset, I've worked with leaders who, we're talking about leaders on a team, and some of them, they fall into your list. They should be jailed before they're allowed to lead. And the feedback will be, "Well, we've all got our foilables and they are the way they are." And to you hear that, would you expect that person's not really going to push forward with the growth?
Yeah, for sure. And so if this is a corporation, I would talk to the CEO. Unfortunately, I've seen it where CEOs have that mindset, but you've got to make a people change, or else, like I said, you won't be able to do anything in your organization unless you have great leadership and great people. And, I'm a firm believer, like if you get that leadership right and you get the people right, the results will be there. Like you will automatically produce great results. But yeah, that fixed mindset, I see it a lot in my lean training. I call it, I ask people in my training, I said, "Have you ever heard of Bitwadi?" They're like, what is Bitwadi? And I said, "Because it's the way we've always done it." Right. So I'm going to get like a Bitwadi Buster t-shirt made up, because I'm like, so part of lean learning is asking good questions and constantly asking, why do you do it the way you do it? Why do you lead the way you lead? Oh, it's just because it's the way we've always done it, or the way I've always been taught to lead. I've always, and I'm seeing the shift of, you've got, especially a lot of my businesses that I consult are family owned, and probably be a topic of my next book, is I see family have been put in the positions of power because they're family. They've been thrust into management roles, not leadership roles. They're managers and not equipped for that. And, so and the father maybe or mother built the business based on authoritative rule and the way it, was done in the 50s and 60s. And now next generation's coming in. Some of them don't even want to be there. And they're torn between the right thing to do and the right way to lead, and how they were raised in that, stern, disciplinary, work really hard mindset. And so I see a big shift in that, especially in family-owned businesses.
And Rich, for these family-owned businesses, there could be a lot of opportunity to improve that over the next, let's call it 10 years, as the baby boomers start to step away from these businesses and pass them down to the next generation. Or in the case where there is no next generation, there could be even greater opportunity to take a position in some of these businesses and help them figure out how to have a succession plan, whether it's internally to management or a sale or an exit, etc.
Yeah. And that's why I think my consulting business I've never advertised and been completely swamped with work from exactly that. These family businesses that a lot of them have grown it to amazing levels, despite education, despite, having no money when they started. Now they're handing it down to the second generation and sometimes third generation, and handing it down because they're family, not because they deserve the position or naturally are great leaders. I'm seeing the effects of this and seeing the need for leadership development, people development, and, all the rest, like how to operate a successful business, how to set goals, how to execute, how to set a good vision, how to change from, human resources to culture and talent, how to make those transitions to make a great place to work, all that stuff. I think there's a huge need.
All right, let's dive in then. So the first topic on the leaders list, love and empathy. What are we looking for here, Rich?
So the question is in the leaders list is, do you love and care for the people you work with, and do you show it? And, so I'll ask questions, and you could probably, put a lot of people or use this as a good litmus test. And I would ask, would you give up your seat on a bus for someone? If there is an elderly person that came on the bus, are you the person that gives up your seat? And I know, Clint, you would 100%, but it kind of gives you uncovers, something about that person, about their leadership and their love and care for others. Do you want others to succeed? I am working with a client right now, and it's super refreshing. The owner's, he says, my purpose here is to provide a living for others. So the reason I want to expand the business, the reason I want to grow is because I want more people to have a good living and to work in a fun place and for an owner that cares, so it's super awesome, right? When, so he just reeks of love and empathy and caring, I see this a lot too, is, leaders have to remind themselves, you don't have to remind someone in like a manager, to point out the negative things that someone's doing, right? It just happens all day, right? Oh, here's all the problems. Here's all the negative things that Clint was doing today. But a leader would look at it and say, okay, hey, Clint, you did this well. You did this, you're amazing at this. So when's the last time you as a leader praised someone in your organization, and walked around the organization, just pointing out some of the good things that happened. So I like to do this little exercise, when I meet with clients, especially when they think it's the meeting, we're going to talk about all the negative things that are happening in the organization. I love to turn it on its head and say, okay, yeah, before we get into the meat of that, what are all the wins? What are all the positive things that are happening right now in the last 3 months in the organization? What are all the wins? And the place goes dead quiet because they're like coming into the mindset of negativity and bringing up all the problems, where try to coach people to think more positively and to think, or celebrating, who are the people on your team and what's worth celebrating? What are the good things that they've done? So that the leader thinks about his team and what are all the positive things that team is doing, right? So it helps them get into the mindset of, am I loving and empathetic? So questions like, how do you show it at work? Like, is there practical ways? And I share in the book, there's a guy, I think Sheldon Yellen, he filled out like 9,000 thank you cards a year to his staff. He sends birthday cards, personalized, handwritten. He sends, like, if one of your kids has a birthday, he'll send them a personalized note, like just some like over and above beyond stuff, thinking about others other than himself. And I had, I'll never forget, I had a professor in college, Mr. Jacobs, and I remember the first day I walked into his class, he said, "Hey, Mr. Huisman, so glad you're here. I've never met this guy before, the first time." And he said that to everybody that walked in. And I was like, what the heck is going on? How did he know who I was? And how did he know everybody in the class? Well, I found out that he got our student IDs and memorized and went home and spent weeks putting a face to our name. And then when we come in, he wanted us to feel like he cared for us and that so he knew our names, everybody, right off the start of the first time we ever met the guy. So that to me is a leader that shows so much care and love, in this case for his students. That's what, to me, is what showing love, and empathy is all about. So, so that's kind of the first trait, right?
That's a great example, Rich. I don't know if you knew the former CEO of Pepsi. She would write letters to the parents of her executives, just telling them the great things that their children were doing. And they might not even know that the letters were going. Just an absolutely next level of love and empathy. And I don't think there was any gamesmanship to it. It was, she felt like the right thing to do, because for her executives, a certain amount of money is great, bit more earnings, great. But for your parents, while they're still here, to know how successful you are on a day-to-day basis, that lights their heart. And for a lot of people, what could be better than hearing your mom and dad say, "Hey, talk to your boss. You're doing great at work." So I thought you would enjoy that one.
Yeah, that's amazing. One of the things that we did when I worked for a company called Roma Moldings is, so we had core values on the wall. And as an executive, we said, okay, how can we take those core values and make them real? And we put them into core value cards. And so if one of them was be humble. So if we saw, I still have core value cards on my wall here that I received when I was there. So if we saw someone that is showing, humility, you'd write them a quick little handwrite, "Hey, I saw you, operating within that core value. I just want to say, how proud I am and blah, 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 to work with you," and give it to them. And most employees would put them on their desk or keep them on their wall or take them, like it was just one little way that you could really show people that you care. And especially in a leadership role, it would mean a lot to them. I still, like I said, I still have a pile of them here from, amazing people that I worked with that said, one of them was, build a positive team and family environment, and just some really nice notes. So those things, but they, one thing, it just has to be natural, right? So, Sheldon Yellen may send out all those cards, but if that isn't your thing, that's no big deal. Don't try to be someone that you're not, but really reflect and say, what could I do that would show people that I care? What is it? Is it the kind gesture? Is it a note? Is it an email? Is it, what are specifically, and remind yourself on a weekly basis to say, how many people have I praised, this week? Or instead of highlighting the negative, what can I do to highlight the positive things that are happening? Because the negative stuff's easy, right, to dwell on. So, so that's where love and empathy, is kind of, I think, so if a leader scores low on this, there are some practical things that you can improve on. And the number one thing I tell leaders is, if you scored low, especially like on love and empathy, share that with your staff. Share that, hey, like, I know I scored low on this and I want to change. And I'm gonna try to do better. I'm gonna show some practical things. And I think if you did that with your staff and were that transparent and that honest, man, you're gonna score You're going to score higher on humility. You're going to score higher on inspiring followership. People that trust you, like a lot of the traits in the leaders list, you'll get checked off just because you have that humble heart to go to them and say, I'm ready to improve.
And what are some of the practical tips that people can use to improve their love and empathy?
Yeah, so notes, thank you cards. So I try to, keep thank you cards in my car. And whenever I see a client or whatever, write a small thank you card. Handwritten is the best, I find. Little things like, right now, obviously there's a heat wave. It's summer. A lot of people that work outside, it's just going that extra mile, and whether it's buying them ice cream or going out of your way to, the other week, one of the leaders that I work with bought, ice cream and popsicles for the entire staff because it was really super hot out, and he hand delivered them himself to everybody. He just wanted to thank them for, working in the heat and that kind of thing. Another owner, put a slushy machine in at work and put a big sign, like, thanks so much for all of the hard work and that you guys do. So practical things. And it's just a matter of, like, there's tons of examples out there of what you could do. It's how are you making your people feel? I share, one of the things we did at Roma. So at any new employee, we had their entire week plan. So, and the onboarding plan. And a lot of corporations have onboarding plans, but we said, how can we kick it up a notch from a love and empathy or caring perspective? How do we make them feel from the first day they walk in to the on Friday afternoon? So we came up and we said, we want our culture. We formed a team in culture and talent, wanting to come up with as many ideas as you can. How could we make that experience a wow experience so they tell 100 people of how great it is to work here? So whenever a new employee started, we would greet them like, Clint, have you ever gone on a trip and you come back and your family's waiting there with a sign, say, welcome home, Clint, and with balloons, right? It'd be amazing. You'd feel amazing. So we said, why don't we do that with new employees? So if Ann started with us on a Monday, the executive team or leadership team or her direct reports, and we would partner up with a buddy, be there with a sign, welcome, Ann, welcome to the family, with balloons. So her first experience walking in the doors was, oh my goodness, like this is, and it didn't matter what position you're in, whether you're C-suite or office or on a manufacturing line, doesn't matter. We treat everybody equally. And you'd have lunch with the ownership or your leadership, and every part of your week was planned, match you up with a buddy. And then we would find something about you during the week, your hobby or something that you liked, So in your case, maybe because you love learning, we'd get you the latest book. And we put it in a little baggie. And at the end of the week, our culture team, I would bring you into the office, into the boardroom, and I'd say, Clint, how was your first week? I just want to talk to you. And our culture team would be playing music and dancing around our office, and you're kind of, trying to keep a straight face, and we're having a conversation, and you can see these people having a parade. They're dressed up in some headpieces and stuff. And they're dancing around the office, and they come into the boardroom that you and I are having a chat. And the last rookie that started at the company before you would have a rookie trophy, and they would hand you the rookie trophy and say, Clint, we're so glad you joined our organization. You have to keep this on your desk or in your workspace until the next rookie. And we got you this little book because we know you like learning. We learned that about you. We're just so happy you're here. Most people that we did this with, they would get emotional. Say, this is the nicest thing that anyone's ever done for me. So that is showing, as leadership, that is showing, love and that you care about the people. And those are practical things. But, so my biggest takeaway on love and empathy would be, how are you making your people feel on a day-to-day basis in your business? And start doing some practical things, and you'll see a major change in your people and the mood and morale.
So Rich, number 2, humility. Are you humble? Do you put others first? What do you look for here?
So I think, humility is a tough one, because if you score, it'd be tough to score high on others if I think the leader didn't have a humble heart. I was looking back and reflecting when writing the book about humility, and I want to preface that, where these traits came from, and I want to share this story because it's really meaningful to me. So I felt I was on my way to work, November 25th. I remember the day and the time, 2015, And I felt I've got a relationship with God. It's my spirituality. It's very important to me. And I felt him say to me, I want you to write a book on leadership, but I don't want you to study all of the secular leaders that are out in the world and the Richard Bransons and the Bill Gates and all of that stuff. I want you to study Jesus. And I studied the Bible and all that stuff, really studied. So I went through and I gleaned one of the greatest leaders, the greatest leader, in my opinion, that ever walked the earth. What was he like? And what were the traits that he had? So a lot of the stuff from the leaders list that I gleaned was from what I gleaned from him. And, so humility, like, the most humble guy didn't have anything. He had no earthly possessions. Like he just walked around for, lived with a family, but for 3 years, he just walked around from house to house, didn't worry about where he was going to live, and was on a journey with 12 others. So that's where a lot of these traits have come from. So that's kind of, I just wanted to preface that. And, that is where a lot of these traits originate. So from a humble standpoint, so for me, humble leaders have always been fascinating, especially those that operate multi-billion-dollar, million-dollar organizations and still come across as a guy that you would never know. Like that, to me, has always intrigued me. And from my experience, when I come in contact with those leaders, they always seem to be just a great leader that you want to follow. So when, we both worked for the Sodders, Clint, and I never forget my first manager meeting. I was super nervous. I was running a business in Halifax. We flew to Vancouver, and it was at a really nice hotel. And we're waiting, and this guy shows up. Never met Lawrence Sodder before in my life. Shows up, and I think it was an Acura, but it was like there was rust holes on the doors that were bleeding. So this old car, he rolls out. We were all in like, not suits, but the Sodder dress apparel was dress pants and a nice collared shirt. And he rolls out in jeans and out of this, old car. And the guy, was leading one of the most successful companies that I've ever worked for. And, multi-million dollars and all of that stuff. And just in my interaction, was a super humble guy. And then I met his father and same thing, was like Order of Merit, Order of Canada, super successful, but you would never know it from interacting with him. And I said, so that for me is humility. And that is, it's tough to teach. But I've seen people that are arrogant and that have changed and softened and taken this seriously and said, no, you know what, I want feedback. And that's the biggest practical takeaway is I would say surround yourself with people that will be honest with you if you're not humble and will give you that feedback.
Yeah. So that's your number one way to improve this thing is to just have people call you out when you're not being humble.
Yeah. Yeah. And, hopefully they're self-aware to say, yeah, I've got stuff to work on. I had a interaction with an owner, who was parking his car in the shop, and it's a very nice car and very expensive and probably worth more than most people's yearly salary. And I had said to him, I said, you know how that lands on your staff? And he was oblivious to it and didn't and he never parked it in there again. But this has gone on for 20 years, right? And until I called him out on it, he wasn't aware that it was landing on people like that. And then, I've seen leaders after leaders that for whatever reason park their, $250,000, Porsche in the warehouse in front of the employees, right? Like just disgusting. So it's awareness. Do they have people alongside you? I always, whatever business that I ran in our Sodder culture, we'd have a sales manager, it's kind of the second in command. And I always surrounded myself with people that had a contrarian point of view. They always, I would say black, they would say white, I would say, and it really helped, right? And same with my behavior. If I was showing something that, or wasn't being humble, or I'd want that person to call me out. My family, they're a great check for me because they'll call me out on stuff all the time, right? So I think each of us as a leader needs to have people around you that can give you honest feedback, especially around humility.
And humility a way to increase that as well, Rich, maybe through whether it's a spiritual practice or a non-secular spiritual practice such as Buddhism, Christianity, meditation, almost any form of faith-based or even non-faith spirituality should help someone increase their humility. Would that be something that you discuss with people?
Yeah, for sure. So I start every morning with gratitude and thankfulness, and yeah. So and I firmly believe this, and I don't want this. This podcast is not to be about me and my relationship with God, but where it's helped me tremendously is that I have a firm belief that nothing that I have done has come from me; it has come from God. So I am thankful for my family, for work, for consult. Like there's so many things. If you have that humble heart to say nothing that you have done is based on what you have done, it has been a gift. You automatically become more humble when you really truly believe that it's something else has provided you. In my case, God has given me these tremendous opportunities and that's why I don't have to advertise either, because I fully believe that God provides, and it's been amazing. And I could have never crafted my journey 5 years ago to say, yeah, I think in consulting, because I work with clients on 3 to 5 year visions, and when I was in Japan, Toyota has a 30-year business plan detailed. I could have never detailed 5 years ago what my plan was going to be and how this whole consulting thing was going to work. Couldn't have. My imagination wasn't that big. So so it's been an amazing journey, and I've realized that part of that practical thing is to be thankful. Even for I was thankful when COVID hit, and I had no work. I had zero for 6 weeks. Man, did I have rich family time and great time with my wife and great time where people would say, "Wow, you have no income coming in. You have no where I was like, wow, this is a gift, man. This is tremendous. I get to spend even more time with my family and more time dreaming about the future, right? And I didn't have any distractions, right? So long walks and so very grateful. So even those times that other people would perceive as, hey, these are the biggest challenges. You have no money coming in, all that. Or my mindset was, God is going to take care of everything, and man, take this time to learn and love your family and spend more time. So. Yeah, so it's just a mindset, right? I know you talk a lot about mindset and positive thinking. It's just having a positive mindset.
Yeah, there's a lot in that answer right there, and quick digression, and then I'll throw a couple questions at you. But absolutely, during COVID, so much to be thankful for, and I acknowledge as I say that we were blessed. We didn't lose our jobs. We were able to keep working, but the amount of time with my wife and children has never been higher. The love that we have for each other has never been better. We've grown so much tighter as a family unit and put everything into perspective about what matters relative to each other and the outside world, if you will. And also just realizing, wait a second, this pace that we've been living at, I actually prefer this pace to the pace we had. It's slower, it's calmer, it's more contemplative. It's not driven by 4 activities a day with each child. So absolutely appreciate some of the positives of COVID. The other thing you were talking about there was the relationship to God and earlier to Jesus. And then the next leadership trait, inspiring followership. No better example. So in this question, we asked, does your leadership style inspire others to follow you? Tell us more about that.
Well, I think we've all worked for some leaders where I'm like, I don't know what it is with that guy, but if he told me to run through that wall, I would run through a wall for him, or that gal. I just love working for her. Or you meet someone you don't even have a direct working relationship with, but you're like, I don't know what it is about her, but she inspires me. If she said, hey, we're starting this up and we're going to do this, I'd follow her because she just inspires followership, And I, again, when I was doing my research, I was like, wow, it shocked me. So Jesus is walking along the beach, right? and comes along, James and John, these two fishermen. They had a fishing business. So imagine you have, your fishing business, very successful. You're right on the Sea of Galilee, which I've been to. It's just amazing. He's walking along and says, hey, you two guys, give up the family business and follow me. And right away, and they did. So I don't know what it was. It helps because he's the son of God. However, there was something about him that they said, okay, we'll do it. And it happened countless times with the 12. They're yeah, give up your tax collecting and follow me. Give up this and just follow me right now. Give up everything. And you're not going to need a house. You're not going to need a lot of money. Oh, we'll provide all that. You don't need any clothes, really. Don't worry. Everything will be taken care of on this journey. So a lot of unknowns, a lot of risks. But he had this followership. He inspired them to follow him, and still has inspired, tens of millions of billions of people over history to follow still, right? So it's just amazing after he's been gone for 2,000 years. So I just find it a fascinating trait, and I've worked for leaders, Clint, you remember Mark Bird, for me was a guy like that, that just, when you met him, he had instant connection. You felt like he cared for you. In my book, I talk about John Wooden, and he was a coach for UCLA Bruins who won 10 out of 12 championships, and just everything I've read about him, just his players were yeah, he was more than a coach. He taught me how to be a better person, so there's people around you. And I have another client story, so one of these clients that I was working with, we worked through core value exercise, and they put integrity on the wall. And they said, and I said, integrity is a tough one. Until you put it on the wall, and you're okay, we got to live by it. And they were in construction business, and it was quite common that there's tons of backlogs and permitting, and that you have some exposure to the building business, right? So there's lots of permit problems, and a lot of their nature of their business was they're small permits, so you got to put a fence up or a deck or all that stuff. So they wanted to build. They bought a property. We're going to tear down this old garage. It was ready to fall down anyways, but permits are going to take too long. So he's let's just tear it down and build a new garage. It's going to be better for the neighborhood anyways. It's going to look great. And let's just do it in a couple of days and done. Some of the employees said, well, that's great. We put integrity on the wall, and yet we're building without a permit, and called him out on it, and it wrecked him. He got in front of a couple hundred staff, held a meeting specifically about it, and said, I screwed up. We put integrity on the wall, and I didn't live by it, and I let this happen. And he says, it's on me. He said, we will never build another structure without a building permit again, even if it takes us, even if the city's super delayed or whatever, or delays projects or whatever, we won't do it. Well, imagine the 200 people that works for him said, that's the leader I want to follow. One that admits when they make a mistake, right? Because we all make mistakes. We're all going to make lots of mistakes. But do you admit them, and do you actually do something about them, right? So that's the type of stuff that, inspires followership. And there's stuff are you kind? Are you, in terms of your leadership, John Maxwell, who I follow a lot, he said, people won't go along with you unless they get along with you. Do you have some likability? And especially, and this is where that I've noticed in family business, they're stuck between leadership styles in the past were intimidation, or now I try to teach motivation, right? Now you have to motivate, right? Motivate people, especially painting vision. Is your vision inspire them? Do you constantly go back to it, right? Are you positive? Do you bring, positivity? Do you focus on the wins? All of that stuff inspires people to follow you. And you care. Is there, are you willing to do every job in the organization? All that stuff, are little ticks on the box of inspiring followership.
And Rich, this is one of the ones that improves dramatically just by improving everything else on the list. It seemed to me to be the one that possibly does it the most. Is that aligned with how you wrote the list?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you, a lot of them work like that. If you improve one, you're going to see some dramatic effect on others. For example, when we get to trust, if you work on those 13 high trust behaviors and actually do something about them, and you will see your inspiring followership scores improve tremendously. if you show more love and empathy to people and talking about being nice and caring, you will see your inspiring followership scores go up. But a lot of that is, I had one leader that couldn't execute, and we'll talk about execution in a minute. Scored great in love and empathy. Like people knew that he cared for them like crazy, and scored really low in inspiring fellowship because he couldn't execute. He would say all these things that he wanted to do, and they couldn't do anything. So people were frustrated. They love him, but frustrated with him at the same time. So we worked on that. Okay, how do we execute? How do we get better in there? And his inspiring fellowship scores went up.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter what you say, what you think, sometimes even what you do. It matters whether you're actually achieving the outcome. And a lot of people, they focus on one or two of these ones without actually getting the results. So that we'll talk about that when we hit execution and why it's so important. And something that helps with execution and helps show people that you're willing to do every job in the shop, passion and work ethic. Can we separate those into their two components and dive into what they mean to you and why they're so important for a leader?
Yeah. So, and some of these too, I'd wrap, man, I had so much to say for each trait, but I wanted to keep it to 10, but I think I could have come up with like 25 or 30, so I kind of worked it together, like passion and work ethic, because you could have everything else, or show that you score high in other areas. But if you are not passionate about what you're doing, your staff or the people you lead will know immediately, and your inspiring fellowship scores will plummet, to non-existent levels because they know you're not passionate about the business. Again, I hate to keep bringing up family-owned businesses, but if the second generation is not as passionate as the first, the entire staff knows it, and they will become less passionate about it. But I have seen it on the flip side. I've seen second generation more passionate about the founding father, and it instills passion in the staff. And I would say, to people and to leaders, that are listening to this, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, stop doing it. Don't if you don't even if it's a family business, even if it, you're the CEO, if you are not absolutely passionate, and that's where I wasn't passionate about chasing the corporate ladder anymore. I wasn't passionate about trying to make as much money as possible. You have to have passion. So does that answer your question, Clint, or give you a little?
Absolutely. On the passion side, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's the easiest to assess when I come into a business. If I can meet with their leaders for 15 minutes, I can tell who's passionate and who's not. Like I can just, through some questions, you can see, who's really passionate about this business, or passionate about the people, or passionate about making improvements, or passionate about setting a really good vision. You can see it fairly quickly.
And Rich,
yeah,
when someone's not passionate, do you find at all that they can start to fall into a level of cynicism about their day-to-day job? And then what negative impact does that have on the team that surrounds them?
Yeah, well, I think, passion is a culture killer, or a lack of passion is a culture killer.
A lack of passion.
Right, a lack of passion is a culture killer. So, because it starts with that.
Especially in a leader.
Oh, especially in a leader, right? And I would, even people on the team, if there's a lack of passion, that spreads, and it will negatively affect someone that is passionate or started out as passionate about the company, and they will actually be dragged down by that culture vampire that just sucks the life out of the organization by not being, passionate about what they're doing. So I like to coach remove those people as quickly as you can. If they're in leadership roles, same thing. And maybe it's time, maybe they're burned out. I see that a lot, especially during COVID fatigue, where leaders are getting burned out and just maybe need to take a month off and recharge their batteries and come back and reassess and say, if you're not passionate about this business or what you're doing, that's okay. But let's find you and help you and move on to the next one that you're going to be passionate about. And like I said earlier, I constantly evaluate my day-to-day to say, what brings me energy and what do I get passionate about when I talk about stuff? And if I can do that, more of that and less of the stuff that I don't get passionate about, then I'm starting to tweak and develop a practice that doesn't feel like work. It's just, I love showing up every day and I'm passionate about what I do. because it can help people and help leaders become better. So that to me is passion. And yeah, and again, it's tough if you don't have it. If you're not passionate, my best advice is then to find something that you can be passionate about, because everybody's passionate about something, in my opinion. And it may not even be like work related. It might be a hobby or their family or whatever. Find something that you can get fired up about, that you'd love to do every day.
And do you ever coach people on simply reframing what they're doing to highlight a passion? And I'll use myself as a case study. I may not like accounting, and as a CFO, there's a ton of other things I do. I love problem solving. I love learning. One of my favorite things in the world is to help other people grow personally, professionally, and financially. I have a large team, and every day I go into work, there's an opportunity to learn. There's an opportunity to grow. There's an opportunity to solve problems, and there's opportunity to help others. If all I focused on was the fact that I don't really like accounting, I probably wouldn't enjoy what I do. Because I focus on the other 5 things, I love my day. And so how can people reframe to focus on the aspects of their role that they are passionate about and learn to let go of the other 20% that they're not?
So I would start by this. Even it doesn't matter what position you are in the organization. You're the CFO, so it's easier for you to delegate and to change your role. But I follow a guy, Marcus Buckingham. I think you know him as an author, and he had this, and I do it very regularly. He said, write down in a month or in a week or in a day, what am I passionate about, or what do I love? I love it when I'm doing this, and I hate it when I'm doing this. And maybe it's aspects of your job you love, pouring into people and being around people and all that, not so much the accounting spot. So then how do you change your job, do less of the stuff you don't like? And maybe, I guarantee you, there's people on your team that love the accounting part of your role, that absolutely thrive, and they're passionate about that. So how do you be open and honest with the people around you to say, yeah, this is what I'm passionate about, this is what I love doing, this is what I don't like doing, and move into that. And if you were an employee, so if there's people listening that say, well, I can't, Rich, I'm not in a leadership position or a management position, I would go to their leader and be open and honest to say, this is what I love doing in my role, this is what, not so much. Is there anything that we can do to give me more of the stuff that I feel I'm good at or love doing, and can we delegate or move positions around? Like if I had an employee that came to me proactively about that, like I'd be like, wow, this person, one, that I give them super big praise for the courage to come to me and be open and honest, and I would want to do whatever I could to make them more happy in their role. It'd be awesome. So that would be my advice, in terms of that is be aware to say, okay, what I love and what don't I love, and let's do more of the stuff I love, and then reevaluate again, because then it'll be like the lowest 20% of what you love, maybe you don't love anymore. And maybe you need to keep orienting, keep changing, and keep, like, my consulting business has changed tremendously from 5 years ago, like crazy. I hate full day engagements. I hate being, at a client for a full day, because I am exhausted mentally at the end of the day. It sucks life out of me. I have to take a day off because I just need to recharge my brain. Or I'm like, you know what? I don't like being there full day, so I'm gonna be there 2-3 hours, and they'll get my best, and we'll have an awesome session. And they don't even like being there full days either. So it actually worked out for them too. And we have great 2-hour, 3-hour meetings, and it's better for me mentally and better for the client. So yeah, so it's constantly pivot and reorientate, yourself.
So Rich, I'm going to do a slight digression, because I don't know if you'll realize how much the man you just mentioned has impacted my life. And Marcus Buckingham, I'll put a link to his website in the show notes. He was the creator of something called the Strengths Finder. And for those who don't know, you answer a series of questions, and it says, what are your top 5 strengths? And Rich, you've highlighted a couple times in our conversation, my number 1 strength is learning. And what I've realized is your strengths tend to also be your passions. So for me, my top 3 strengths are learning, competition, ideation. And so I do have you won't be surprised either, a 5 to 10 year plan for my life and where it's going. And in my values section, it's effectively my top 5 strengths: What are they? Because those are the things that I realize I value in life. I value learning. I value growth. I value ideation, helping others, etc. And so then those created my purpose, and everything I'm doing, whether it's my day job, whether it's the Pursuit of Learning podcast, writing books, etc., are all driven by that path from his strengths finder through to values, through to purpose, all the way to 5-year plan, which I then take backwards and turn into daily habits and rituals. So thank you for sharing that tool. I didn't realize till I did a quick Google after you said it that he was the one who had created that, which had such a dramatic influence on my life. So thank you.
Yeah. So all your listeners, for sure, fill out your strength finders. As many of those assessments as you can do to really figure out, what are you passionate about, and it'll align, like you said, with your strengths naturally. So do more of that and less of the stuff you're not so good at.
And for work ethic, what are people missing on that one?
Yeah, and I wouldn't generalize. Like a lot of people give millennials a hard time, and the next generation. My dad's Dutch. He immigrated from Holland. He was a builder, so in the building, and my brother's a builder. And I worked for him for summers, and he believed that unless you're sweating profusely, when you're unless you're you have to be sweating all day long, or else you're not working hard enough, and long hours and all of that stuff. So where my philosophy is more work smarter, not harder. So that generation had a tremendous work ethic, like work really long hours and work hard, and you'll be successful. And a lot of that rings true. Where some of the generational businesses that I work with, the owners had that work ethic. They built the business on it, do whatever it takes mentality. But the next generation, like small things, they're the last to come to the office in the morning, first to leave, little things like that. I'm also a proponent of balance. And I had the work ethic in spades, didn't have so much the balance worked out. So you have to find that really good balance. And for me, and I share this in the book, I had to be home at 6:00 every night. And we have this pact that say, okay, if I'm not traveling, I'm going to be home for dinner at 6. So, because that's the time when we could meet as a family. And then after family, it was sports and all this other stuff. But it didn't mean I couldn't go into work at 3 a.m. or 4 and put the time in that I needed, because I wasn't stealing time with dad away from the kids or from my wife, because they're all sleeping, right? So you have to find that balance as well as work ethic. I think it's, now people have the ability to work all hours, all the time, because they're always connected. So work ethic for me is defined as, when you're on, be on, and when you're with your personal time, shut it off. So so put the phone down, put the phone in the drawer, people think, oh, that's great work ethic that I'm working 24 hours or I'm available all the time. Well, to me is like, no, when you get to the office or you take that time, and it could be, a 10-hour day or an 8-hour day, people will know if you're not putting the work in. So work ethic for me is not determined in how many hours you're putting in. It's the quality of work that you're putting in, and the balance that you have in between work and personal life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's huge on a number of fronts. There's a lot of people, Rich, and you've probably seen it in your career, where they think it's FaceTime that matters. And when I talk about working hard and getting shit done, excuse the language on that one, it's more on the second part. It's not, I don't want you to be here 9 hours just so I see you at your computer because I see you're shopping for underwear. I want you to be getting things done, and in getting things done, you're learning, you're growing, you're developing, you're adding value, you're becoming a better human being. And people think I want that for them because I want them to just work more. Well, no, you tell me you want to grow. You tell me you want more money, better title, more challenging work, more variety in your work, and you want to work less. Well, I can't give you the first 4 with the last one. That doesn't work. But if you want those things, then I'm willing to stay an extra hour or 2 to help teach you and grow you and give you more challenging work. And and if you want to come in early, you can do that. It's not about being here till 9 at night. It's about getting a certain amount done in the time that you're here and making sure that what you get done is done smart. You've improved it incrementally, maybe exponentially. You've automated something. You've made the place better. So you've really thought about why you're here during the time that you're here.
Yeah. And it makes a ton of sense. And I think traditionally, too many leaders have equated the number of hours that someone puts into that's good work ethic or not good work ethic. To me, and we're going to talk about execution. Are you getting things done? Do you make it happen, or don't you? And do you have the mentality of do whatever it takes? So some days you might have to put a 16-hour day in.
Absolutely.
But some days, like, hey, no problem, you're blasting off at noon to go play golf for the afternoon because you execute on that amazing, and I know you will do whatever it takes to make it happen.
That's right.
So then it doesn't become number of hours. It's like I tell my kids this: there's 2 types of people in this world: people that make it happen and people that don't. And there was a third, but I dropped the third. The third is
people that complain about it.
People that ask, "Oh, what happened? What?" Or say, "Hey, what happened? What happened?" Well, we were making things happen while you're asking what happened. So, and I tell them, choose who you want to be, like the people that make it happen, and you'll see results. You'll see, things will be good, and you don't even have to worry about work. But take that work ethic or that, hey, I'm going to take that approach to make it happen in my personal life as well, with my family time and I'm going to show up just as engaged at home with my family as I do with my work. And it'll blend. And when you're doing something that you love professionally and you love your personal life, it'll all blend together like a beautiful canvas where you're working and you don't even know you're working, and you're creative and you're thinking and you're walking and spending time with your wife and your kids. And that's called life, and a very rich life when you find that.
Yeah, Rich, that blending and something that I write more and more lately that ties into all of that is I'm involved in some communities around how do you grow financially and young people asking questions. And one of the things I say is if every day you can tick these boxes on how you grew mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, if you can tick those boxes every single day, the financial is going to take care of itself, right? You're going to be better and deserving of more. And 2, you're also going to realize I don't really need more, right? So many of us have a consumptive, we're driven to consume, to get more. And then you realize the more work you do, well, maybe I just need less. And then I can live that happier life. But while we're on that, go.
No, when I was studying for the book, I read about Keanu Reeves from The Matrix, and it was super refreshing. So the guy's made $1 bazillion. He lives in an apartment, I think. He doesn't, not a big fancy Malibu spot. He's got an old Honda Accord that he drives, and I think his philosophy was well, if it gets a dent in it, I don't get too upset, right? If I have a Maserati in the driveway and someone scratches or whatever, it adds stress to your life where, he puts no onus in having material possessions, and there's less stress, less anxiety, right? And I thought, oh, the happier I'll be is the more money I make. And the happier I'll be is the house. If I get a bigger house, I'll be super happy then. Well, I wasn't. So I was like, you know what? I'm happy. My car gets me from A to B, and a rock came up and hit my car. I was like, oh, no big deal. Not a big deal, because I don't really care about that stuff. And it takes all that anxiety but young people now are just chasing that. Oh, if I could make 50 grand, it'd be awesome. If I could make 100 grand, if I could make they're always chasing, to do more. Well, and then they'll get there and they're like, oh, I'm looking around, it's not so great, But like you said, if they work on those 4 things, they're gonna be fulfilled life where they are, right?
Absolutely. The Keanu has so many wonderful things written about him, and you wonder how many of them are true. One of the ones that I love that you may appreciate about him, I've heard he's basically got to the point in his life where if you tell him 2 + 2 = 5, he'll say, "Great, sure." He just doesn't want, there's no point in investing in the fight anymore. So I always love a solid Keanu story, and there's great videos of him on the subway giving up his seat for people when they stepped on the subway and needed a seat. So to your earlier example, he lives that life from everything I've read and seen. Continuous improvement. Why is this one so important?
Yeah, it's probably, one of the things I had to do. I went through a leadership course recently last year, and you had to do your own mission statement. And I was like, wow, that's weird. I've never, I do that with companies, but don't do mine. And one of my key components is to continually improve. Is I have a thirst for knowledge, thirst to learn something. Like I even took a coding course on HTML and CSS, and I had no idea what that was. And I took it, and it was awesome. I learned how to build a website. It was a terrible website, but I just learned, right? And it's amazing that I've taken some of what I learned, and I was like, oh yeah, I can help you with a website or whatever. I know how that works a little bit because I've done some coding. And for me, when I went on that lean journey, that changed my life. Is that lean is all about continuous improvement. It's like, and how do you continually improve every day your business, your personal life, and how do you continue, like you said, those 4 things, you work on those every day, you'll see a major trajectory, and you'll wake up and go, wow, how do we accomplish what we accomplished, or how did I get there personally? So it's like, podcasts like yours, listening to them, or going to leadership events, or reading. I tell this awesome story in the book. I met this guy. I go on a yearly golf trip, and we had a new guy a couple of years ago. His name is Tim. And then striking up a conversation. I rode with him the first day. I was like, hey, Tim, what's your story? He's like, oh, I used to work for UPS. I said, oh, okay, UPS. Like, he said, yeah, I was the vice president of Asia. I was like, oh, cool. I got all these questions for you. When did you go paperless? And why do your trucks only turn right? All these crazy things. And, but he told me a story about, he started as a driver for UPS. And he had this thirst for knowledge and constantly improving. But he's like, I didn't tell him, but I didn't have my high school diploma. I was a couple credits short because there was a high school shooting in Toronto, one of the first ones ever, and he witnessed it, and it had a traumatic effect on him. So he dropped out. But he said he got into UPS and started climbing the corporate ladder, and he couldn't take a promotion unless he had his high school diploma. So at 40 years old, he goes back to high school, sits in class, finishes his education, and then went on to be the vice president of Asia for UPS, right? So amazing story. So continue. So those kind of things, like I feel that's how I'm wired. It's just, and if you want to be a great leader, I think you need to have a thirst for continually improving, and whatever that is, if it's the charity you're running, or the business you're running, or you personally, is how are you improving? Like you said, those 4 things every day. And if you do that, man, you're going to be an awesome leader, because you're going to learn new things.
What are some of the key ways you want to see leaders learning and improving?
Reading. If I could say anything, and I've had a lot of people ask, Rich, what books do you read? Just read another one from Adam Grant called Think Again. Just amazing. And I hear this a lot though. Oh, I don't like to read. Well, okay, you can get Google to read it for you or read it to you. You can get audiobooks. You can watch TED Talks. You can listen to podcasts. You can, now the amount of information, now I find it, now it's the reverse, where you get all this information coming at you and all this stuff that you could soak in. Now you got to take some time for yourself, for quiet time too, and have that time. And there's learning in that and improving as well. Is how do I have that quiet time where I can learn and just think? But yeah, like that's what my biggest thing would be: take a course, and a totally random course. Like I did a coding, and I don't know why you even picked it, but I just wanted to learn, what is this coding thing all about? And it was tremendous. Take a course that is totally something that is not, in your sweet spot, and you'll learn tremendous things from it. So that would be kind of my advice to your listeners.
Well, if we look at your list that we had at the beginning of the conversation, motivated by thirst for knowledge, 2 or 3 things you want to get across to people, people can change radically. And we'll come back to that because I think they underestimate how radical change can happen from small things consistently over time, right? People are looking for that big radical change like that versus evolution, small, smart decisions plus time plus consistency equals exponential results, and passion for people in learning. So we're ticking off a few of them with this question. One of the things you may offer to people who tell you they don't love reading, Rich, and I'm trying to get this across to one of my sons and to some other people, is a great thing I read was read what you love until you love to read. And so for most of my life, simple personal example, I read predominantly fantasy books, right? I'm now writing fantasy novels because I created that skill set. But I haven't read a fantasy novel since January of last year, and I've read probably about 60 nonfiction books now because I took the love of reading, or I took the reading what I loved, and now I just love reading and I love learning. So I've shifted to reading to learn, which prompted another reason we have the podcast is I get to read your book and then have a conversation with you, which feels like the ultimate way to learn is to have a book club with the actual author versus friends. Okay, so then the next one on your list, trust. So it can seem simple and it can also be challenging when we can't be fully transparent with our colleagues. So why is this one of the keys, Rich, and how do we improve it?
Wow. I would tell those people I just told to read books. One of the first books you should grab is Stephen Covey's Speed of Trust. It is on my top tier of the bookshelf, along with Good to Great. And it impacted me tremendously, and it gave you some practical, and again, like I said, I like practical nuggets. So it has, and I've even said to some of my clients, we'll make up a poster of the 13 behaviors. So I'll just run them through fairly quickly. So talk straight, right? No BS, be honest, be transparent. So don't be a politician. Don't tell us what we want to hear. Talk straight with people. Like if all these leaders did these 13, and just focus on these. If they got nothing else, read that book and focus on these, and you'll become a radically better leader. So number 2, demonstrate respect. 3, create transparency. Right wrongs. Show loyalty. Deliver results. Get better. Confront reality. Clarify expectations. Practice accountability. Listen first. Keep commitments. Extend trust. Like those 13, I tell you, and read the book, and it goes into detail about each one. And I thought trust was like very simple, like you alluded to. Oh yeah, do I trust Clint? Yeah, I trust Clint. But what does that mean? And it's more than just even those 13. It's like, are you on time for meetings? Can I trust that you are going to be on time? And to me, I'm a stickler for that one. I think it's super disrespectful when people don't show up on time for meetings and are late. I lose trust. I lose trust that, they're, going to be on time. And then, especially when I was in the corporate world and salespeople would be late for meetings, I'm like, okay, so if I can't trust you to be on time for our meeting, what other meetings are you late for? Like, are you late for customer meetings? I hope not. And if our operations people are not on time for meetings, can I trust that you're going to send our stuff out on time when the customer needs it? I'm not sure anymore, right? I'm losing that little bit of trust, so it's a big one. So, fun thing, Vince Lombardi, famous coach, Lombardi Trophy, Super Bowl trophy is named after him. So he had this thing called Lombardi time. And I think if you weren't 15 minutes before practice or for a meeting, he'd bench you, right? Like you had to be 15 minutes. If you were 15 minutes, you're late almost. Like it had to be. So we put Lombardi time in place. You had to be 5 minutes before a meeting, or else we locked the door and you couldn't get in the meeting, and we'd make you feel pretty bad. And we even put in the last work, we had a picture of Lombardi at the meeting, at the conference room door, pointing to the conference room. So everyone knew, hey, Lombardi time, yeah, we got to be there 5 minutes early. And some stragglers would be in there 2 minutes early, but they'd be on time, right? There was nobody late because we set the expectation there. So, and And one of the last one was extend trust, which is super hard. And I share this story in my book. I when I first got married, I applied to an ad in the magazine. There was jobs offered in Saudi Arabia. And so I applied. I don't think I even told my wife at the time. And we had just gotten married. So I get this response back, yes, you've been accepted. So I didn't realize if you had a pull and you wanted to move to Saudi Arabia for a job, you could. So I get there 6 months into my 2-year contract. They had hired a sales manager for the Middle East. He wasn't going to work out. So that I'm like 24, 25 years old. The owner of the company, Mahmoud Al-Kohami, comes and sits me down or says, hey, I want to see you. And I thought, oh boy, I'm in trouble. And he said, I want you to become the sales manager of the Middle East. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. What does it mean? He said, just travel around and meet our customers and architects and try to get us more business. I'm like, okay, sure. I'd love to do it. And I said, why are you at my age? I have no experience. I just got here. He said, because I trust you. He said, I'm extending, basically he was extending trust to me until I took that trust away. So that was super powerful. That changed the trajectory of my entire career, my life, by getting that first leadership opportunity. So that's a big one for me, is extend trust. So I share this story in the book too. Warren Buffett, does a deal with Walmart, basically over a handshake, multi-billion-dollar deal. And when asked, how could you do that deal so quickly? And he said, because I trust Walmart's books are what they told me they're going to be, and they trust me that I'm a man of my word. I'm going to go through with this deal. Like he said, we didn't need lawyers. So when trust is high, speed goes up and costs go down. And I've seen it multiple times. So my best advice for the entire chapter, just get the book, get Speed of Trust.
The Speed of Trust.
Yeah, Stephen Covey.
We'll get that in the show notes. For those who are wondering, this is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey, this is his son who's written this one, and it's absolutely fabulous. So we'll get that in the show notes. Rich, vision and communication.
Yeah, so the question is, do you inspire people by painting a clear, compelling vision of the future, and do you communicate that vision to those around you? So that is what you're rating yourself from 1 to 10. And this is where, one of them, the leaders, at least that I deal with, they suffer from. They don't have a clear vision for the business. They don't communicate it. They may have something on a wall that they came up with, but don't really refer to it. And vision leaks, so once you establish, okay, where is it that we want to go? And it may not be exactly clear, but, get that 3 to 5 year plan. I stress at least try to have a 1-year plan. What's your 1-year roadmap, which we'll talk about in execution next? What is your strategy map for the next year? What's your 3 to 5 year plan? Where do you want to go? And does that vision inspire people? And are you inspired and passionate about the vision? Does that fire you up? And does that fire the staff up? And then you're onto something where you've got something that you're like, yeah, we want to go there, and we want to join you on that journey. So what I see is a lot of companies or organizations that I deal with don't have a clear vision for the future, don't know where they want to go, or if they do, they don't share it with anyone, or don't communicate it, or don't get fired up. So you need to first walk through the framework, and I share kind of how to do that in the book. And then once you have that framework and you can boil your vision down, then inspire the staff, paint the vision, and continually reinforce it with your team. So,
Rich, is our vision, we're effectively planting the flag in the sand of where we're wanting to go, and then we're taking the march to get there?
Yeah. And a lot of leaders, this is where they miss the mark, is they think, oh, okay, I have to come up with that vision. I have to do that all on my own. I got to work. The best vision come from, yes, the leader will have some inspiration of where they think they want to go. But the best vision is when you bring your team with you, say, hey, let's put ourselves, out there 3 years. What would success look like? So we're out in the future 3 years from now. What does the company look like? Look around, right? Close your eyes. Let's go on this journey. Let's look into the future. Let's look around. What does the company look like? What does our culture look like? What are the products that we sell? Are we in new markets? Really, and I would strongly, if you want to do this as a team, get out of your current situation, go to a beautiful retreat center or something that you can get away with, and bring the team into that reality and just start brainstorming of what would the future look like. And if you bring your team along for this journey, man, you're going to have a vision that is going to be awesome, that everyone's going to get passionate about, and you'll come back to the rest of the team and fire them up to say, okay, yeah, this is where we're going to get, this is how we're going to get there, or this is where we want to go, and we'll talk an execution of how to get there. But first is the question is your vision inspiring? Does it inspire the staff? And if it doesn't, then you got to rethink your current vision.
And when you're working with leaders individually, do you also encourage them to have that same vision in their personal life, not just the professional life?
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. And, I do more business coaching than probably personal coaching. But yeah, because like I said earlier, it meshes, right? What does success look like for you personally? And it mostly comes around, and how do we mesh your personal vision with your business vision? If you are an owner of the business, how do we get those aligned? So like I said earlier, where it's like perfect painting, your work life and your personal life, it's all together, and your family knows the vision of the business you're leading, and like it's just a relationship that is intertwined. So
100%. All right, Rich. So now to the one we've been hinting at. How important is execution as an individual and as a business? And how can the 4 disciplines of execution help us out here? Giving you a double header on that one.
This is probably when I work with clients, the one that they struggle with the most is how do they make things happen? How do they do what they say they're going to do? Because most companies that I deal with, they'll wake up a year and they'll look at their financials once a year when the CFO cranks them out, and they'll say, oh man, what happened? Oh, or we had a good year or a bad year, where they don't set goals, they don't work on them proactively and make them happen. So another good recommendation for a book is the 4 Disciplines of Execution, Chris McChesney. I think he works for Covey, so another Covey product. But you gotta look at, and so, but where I've taken this and put my own bent on it is, so what is your once you've established what do you want to do for 3 to 5 years, and you can do this personally as a personal roadmap, is I call it a strategy map. What is the 1-year plan for the organization or for you personally? What do you want to accomplish? So we'll brainstorm and say, okay, here's where we're at. Put yourself out a year from now, and let's go through. So if we take it in a business context, what is the one wildly important goal that we want to accomplish? So most businesses, especially struggling ones, they'll have an EBITDA goal or a profitability goal. They'll say, okay, I want this. Chris McChesney in the book will say that shouldn't be the goal. I kind of disagree. So they must make profits. That is the generator for other stuff that they can do. So if profitability is the goal, or an increase in revenue or whatever, what are all of the other divisions, operations, culture and talent, sales, what are those things that can, if they do these things, will naturally hit our goal? So I'll give you a weight loss example. So my kids say, Dad, you got to lose like 20, 30 pounds. I'm like, all right. So my lag measure, so he talks about lag and lead measures. My lag measure is when I yes, lag and lead measures. My lag measure is when I step on the scale, okay? So I will step on the scale every day, or if you're in a business, you're going to look at your financials once a month or whatever. When I step on the scale, it is what it is. I can't do anything about it now. That's my lag measure. That is my moment in time that I'm measuring. That's your financial statement. That's maybe your dashboard. That's whatever you're measuring. That is my lag measure. However, so I'll ask you, Clint, what could we do that if we did this, when we step on that scale, we would see results? What are some things we could do?
I believe it was when I was at Sauder, they showed us a video called The Fat Smoker. And I would say it is exercise more and eat less. So my lead indicators would be, what is my exercise routine and what is my caloric intake?
Brilliant, right? So you're going to say, okay, so under exercise, I like to walk with my wife. One, I get exercise, plus I spend time with her, which is awesome. So if I exercise if I walk 4 times a week for an hour, I'm going to burn this many calories, so that's going to be great. If I worked out 3 times a week, like heavy, weights, if I went for a run twice a week, if I did those 3 things and I measured them, next time when I step on the scale in a month, I guarantee you're going to see results. When you go to the lag measure, so if you accomplish these lead measures, so same with, calories, right? I like a bowl of ice cream. If I cut that out, and if I cut these certain foods out, or if I watch what I'm eating, or I watch my calories, if I did those things, automatically, when I step on my lag measure, which is the scale, you're going to see results. But so that it works in the same way in your business, in your personal life. So what I work on with businesses is, okay, what are those? So I did this with the first business I ran. I said, what are the 3 to 5 things? We had too many initiatives actually on our strategy map. The first time I was pretty aggressive and wanted to accomplish a lot. So I would recommend, what are the 3 to 5 things? So I'll give you an example. So if you want to increase revenue, and this is where we tied it in. So when I ran a business for solder, I said, if we could get the operations where they were like, we were operationally excellent, you could lick the floor clean, it was that clean. We had processes in place and double checks that it was so solid. All we would have to do is get clients to come into our business, go for a tour. We had a scripted tour. If we could get those clients to come into the business, we think we could convert them to us. We think, those potential clients will buy from us. So I said, okay, operations, here's your lead measures. Okay, we want clean the warehouse. We bought a power wash pressure washer, 2.5 hours every night, clean it. Double check every order, right? And we're going to hold them accountable. We want all back orders to be signed. Like, we put operational steps in place that we wanted to measure. On the flip side, sales said, okay, who are the 50 clients, potential clients that you're going to bring into the business? Who are they? Specific names, by when, and we're going to measure that on a weekly basis. Okay, you're going to, Mosaic Homes is supposed to come for a tour. Where are they? When are they coming? So if we felt that our exercise was when we could bring 50 clients in, if we felt we could do that and brought them in, automatically our revenue would go up, our EBITDA would go through the roof because we convert 20% of them or more. That was our lag measure was, okay, monthly. Wow, we're seeing sales go like this. We're seeing our profits go because we're all connected around the goal and holding people accountable to making those things happen. That's the magic. So yeah, jump in there, Clint.
Well, that goal came from the vision exercise. So what should the goal be? We created the vision. We created our strategy map, and then we did what we needed to kill it.
Yeah. So it's I remember I'll never forget Bill Sauter Sr. We had a discussion and we were walking in his garden, and I said, teach me about all this stuff. Teach me about, financials and he basically said, Rich, it's very simple. We buy stuff, we sell it, and we execute. And sometimes he said we manufacture a little bit, but he said execution. Like, you have to do what you say you're going to do and make it happen. So that's where the strategy map can really help organizations, or you personally, is, and we've all heard it though, like, set goals. So I put the strategy map physically, it's a map on the wall and everyone sees it. And you're like, okay, we said we're going to bring 50 clients through here. We have backup data, and then we meet weekly to see, okay, where are we at? You said you're going to power wash the warehouse every night. We've only done 20 out of 30 nights. Well, what happened? What are we doing about it? And you are what you measure. So you start measuring that stuff, and you're automatically going to see what the results.
I always love when someone takes a business as successful as Sauter and boils it down so succinctly into: we buy, we sell, we execute. Wow. That's wonderful.
And it's for a lot of businesses, we seem to overcomplicate them, but what really stuck out for me was, you want to be successful. Yeah, you can work out all that stuff. It's execution. Just make it happen.
Just execute.
All the other stuff will take care of itself.
I've been using for probably 10 years now, Rich, a simple saying for almost anything you want in life. Know what you want, understand what it takes, do the work day in, day out. I now realize I probably got that from Ray Dalio. He has 4. Know what you want, understand the obstacles, and then do the work to overcome them. And Rich, I've had a blast with all these questions, and I know we've already gone over the time that I scheduled you for. Can you tell us about courage and the importance of having the hard conversations?
Yeah, I think I'll kind of wrap up with the last two, courage and decision making, is, a lot of leaders may be thinking they're leading well, but are not, talking straight, like from one of the trust behaviors, the high trust behaviors is talking straight with their employees or giving them honest feedback. And a lot of leaders don't know how to frame those conversations, or don't know how to or don't feel comfortable having those conversations. And it is absolutely crucial if you want to be a leader that people trust, and you have to have the courage to have those conversations with your staff. So in the book, I share, what's been successful for me is a check-in process, and you can use this personally with your family. And quite quickly, it's what are you checking in at from 1 to 10 personally? What are you checking in at from 1 to 10, 10 being absolutely amazing, professionally? So if someone says, yeah, I'm a 9 personally, things are great at home, family's great, everybody's healthy. I'm a 8 at work, work's going good. There's some things that I'd love to see improve, but overall things are good. That person's checking in pretty high. If a person checks in with you and says, hey, I'm a 9 at work, I'm absolutely putting the puck in the net, things are great, or even a 10, and you think they're showing up like a 6, that's a great opportunity to say, well, actually, Clint, I think you're showing up like a 6, and this is why. And here's some specific examples from the last, couple weeks that I've seen that I think you're showing up like this, and you document it. So it's a 1-page, very simple, it's very efficient. It's not a long performance review. It's a quick, here's how I want to understand how you think you're showing up, and I want to tell you how I think you're showing up. And I've had in the past where my employees have said, well, I'm showing up like this, a little higher than what you're rating me, and this is why. And I'm like, I changed my score. I'm like, wow, okay. Well, thanks for the conversation. Thanks for being transparent. So I think it's critical if you want to be a great leader to have the courage. And this is where I wrapped like 5 different aspects of courage into one question. Do you have the courage to have conversations? Do you have the courage to let people know where they stand? Do you have the courage to stand for what is right? It wraps a lot of that into one question. So, but having that courage to have tough conversations is one critical aspect of becoming a great leader. And a simple tool is that check-in process. And use this with your kids. My kids, I don't know about your kids, but have a tough time sharing how they're feeling. Well, when I start talking about a check-in, they'll open up about their day, right? If my daughter's a 6 because she's, anxious, it spurs a great conversation. Then the last one, decision-making, I give you a framework in the book that if you follow that framework, it'll help you make better decisions. You'll still make bad decisions. That's when I think the best learning comes from, is when you make a bad decision, do you learn from it, do you evaluate and move on, and don't beat yourself up over it. But this just gives you a framework of, if I follow these decision-making criteria, I'll make better decisions. So, and if you're an emotional decision maker, try to take that emotion out, take the time, and make a good, solid decision. So those are the 10 traits. Again, rank yourself, send it to your staff, rank them, and work on your leadership. And I have a half-day program that I teach leaders to try to improve on. And I say, just start with 3 things. What are the 3 things that you're going to start next week to work on and see improvement on and track, right? So what are those lead measures? If you did these 3 things, did them well next week, you'd see an automatic, when you actually step on the scale or you do the leaders list assessment in 6 months, you'll see an automatic result change for the positive. So
I love the way you tied the lead and lag indicators into that, Rich. That was well done. So how can people find you to do this work?
Yeah, there's multiple ways. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or my website, JENT, so that's JENT Consulting.com. Or you can, if you want to go to the leaders list directly, you can go to leaderslist.com and take the assessment there. It's free. There's no cost to it, and a lot of people will give me feedback like, oh, why don't you charge for the leaders list assessment? It's just because, I think the world would be a better place if we all became great leaders. So I'm offering this, for free. Is assess yourself and get your team to assess you, and then make those 3 goals, and you'll see massive improvement. So reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions or thoughts on specific examples of how people could improve on these traits. I'd love to hear from you. Again, like Clint, I love to learn. I love to continually improve. So that's That's where people can get a hold of me.
Thank you, Rich. So we'll get your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. We'll get the JENT Consulting website in the show notes and the leaderslist.com website in the show notes, as well as a link where people can buy your book. Absolute pleasure catching up with you after a long time not seeing each other, and appreciate what you shared today and having you on The Pursuit of Learning.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Clint, and great to spend time with you.
Thank you for joining us on The Pursuit of Learning. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and head over to our website, thepursuitoflearning.com, where you will find our show notes, transcripts, and more. If you like what you see, sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, your host in learning, Clint Murphy.